Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dia's Readings in Contemporary Poetry series. My name is Megan Whitko, and I am the manager of exhibitions at Dia, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to tonight's reading. We are really thrilled to be hosting poetry at Dia again in this new virtual format. So we are tremendously pleased to welcome our poets for tonight's program: Erica Hunt, Duncan McNaughton, Maureen Owen, Anne Waldman, and our guest of honor tonight, John Godfrey. Thank you all for joining us to honor John and to honor his work tonight. John, it's also a great pleasure to have you back reading at Dia. I think this is your second time joining us for the series, so thank you for returning. And I would also really like to thank Vincent for organizing this reading tonight. Many of you know that Vincent has been curator of poetry at Dia since 2010, and he is a poet himself, as well as a critic, a translator, and the author of 14 books of poetry and 2 books of translation. So before I hand it over to Vincent, I just wanted to briefly mention that since we're not able to be here in person, to be together in person, please do know that the chat for this event is enabled, and so if you want to send warm wishes or nice thoughts or congratulations to John or any of our readers, please absolutely feel free to reach out in the chat and do so. That would be really lovely, and we'll make sure that all people participating tonight have a chance to see the chat after this event. So I think without any further ado, I will hand it over to Vincent to start us off for the evening.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you all out there in TV land for joining us for this very exciting tribute to the inimitable John Godfrey. I think we all were excited when this possibility arose, and I'm very glad that we have such a great group of poets here to honor him, including, as Megan mentioned, Erica Hunt, Maureen Owen, Duncan McNaughton, and Anne Waldman, and they'll be reading in that sequence. And then John will do a reading at the end. So I will begin by reading a short biography of John Godfrey. This is adapted from his most recent book, A Torch for Orphans. John Godfrey was born in Messina, New York in 1945 and has lived in the East Village of Manhattan since the end of the 1960s. He has been employed as a waiter, furniture mover, a farm worker, a janitor in a San Francisco rock and roll studio, assistant editor for an art magazine, and type shop messenger, followed by a number of years in the alternative economy. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Columbia University and became a registered nurse in 1994. From 1994 to 2003, he was a visiting nurse in the maternal pediatric HIV/AIDS home care program of St. Mary's Hospital for Children. In 2003, he moved to the HIV/AIDS clinic at Kings County Hospital Center in East Flatbush, which provided pediatric, maternal, adolescent, young adult, and gestational treatment services. He played a prominent role in the prevention of mother-to-newborn transmission of HIV in 325 out of 325 cases before retirement in 2011. He is the author of 16 collections of poetry and prose poetry, including 26 poems, Music of the Curbs, Dabble, Where the Weather Suits My Clothes, Midnight on Your Left, Push the Mule, Private Lemonade, City of Corners, Tiny Gold Dress, and A Torch for Orphans. In 2016, Wave Books published The City Keeps, Selected and New Poems, 1966 to 2014. Our first reader tonight will be Erica Hunt. Erica Hunt is the author of Jump the Clock, new and selected poems published by Nightboat Books, and 5 collections of poetry: Local History, Arcade, Peace Logic, Time Flies Right Before the Eyes, and Veronica, a Suite in 10 Parts. Her poems and nonfiction have appeared in Bomb, The Brooklyn Rail, Conjunctions, The Los Angeles Review of Books, Hambone, and In the American Tree. With poet and scholar Dawn Lundy Martin, Hunt is co-editor of the anthology Letters to the Future, Black Women, Radical Writing, published in 2018 from Corre Press. Currently, she is the Bonderman Visiting Professor of Practice in the Literary Arts at Brown University. Welcome, Erica.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you and a pleasure to honor John Godfrey, a wonderful poet, a New York poet, a poet with an ear. And so in that spirit, I begin with a little song. Glittering clouds and shimmering clouds in canyons of steel, they're making me feel I'm home because it's springtime in New York. Why does it seem so inviting? It's springtime in New York. It spells the thrill of first nighting. Oh, it's good to live it again. I'm going to read from Midnight on Your Left, which has its own beautiful music. The city keeps. Frosted moths dance over your sights. Your cycle is interrupted on aim. For the third time in 10 minutes, you cross corners past an old Latino, toothless, pork pie, fistful of his own pants, thoughtful. He stares at a short-haired, sturdy, tan stray of proud, saintly restraint in relations with the domestic class of dog. How self-reliant, what inconsolable carriage, safe only alone. Do not be so moved by everything that belongs to the city. Glazed brown sugar wheel troughs, Chivago ice desert street light, but not quite a night for burglars to call in sick, not a night for discontent to surge in heavy boots of principle. Hands are not clasped in power chain of mutiny. The sun will only bring ripening towards ego damage on some clawed doorstep. The creeping, lying reflexes stretch teeth, pants, dented, empty pillow stains, strange remorse in light impering clouds. There'll be enough bleakness for everyone. For zealous missionary lovers standing in as bartenders and bar girls, night throwbacks. Do not be so moved by everything that clings to the city for its shape and preternatural drag, narcotic morning liquidity scare, forgotten as the showgirl, $70 richer by evening, floats out of the Frisco coin op clit, spread booth tease, wringing her high and wet, fantasy transformed into equally useless chains clinking through dense rooms, drowning out anxious shouting childbirth hours when cold new light carries the tattle, when the name mentioned ricochets and rises to heaven from the walls of prison illumined by window visages. Steer clear, O victims, For rubbing fingers on my teeth are the least bit of mud and a roasted, frazzled corsage from the coast. There'll always be someone else slicker among vagary, lumpen, metallic waltzes. They all motor talent, sparring whole platoons in music truce stemmed from manifold least elastic lux. They're on top of it, all right. Do not be so moved by their fanfare so close to the bottom of the city. It is my luxury to recognize their painlessness, to associate their unpleasant lusts with preservative acid fruits, to layers of decay. I suck in their souls in order to say, they belong here. All velvety with suspiration, and I esteem their resistance, sunless, and the glowing concaves of the city pour desolated accretions born of shrill fists. Two more, short, slope. Slope, this is from Private Lemonade. I cannot say handbag for you, armrests so cold. I do say it was all weak minds, highway postmortem. On the drums, I might black out. The sleep of your foot is vortex, and yourself is wanton goof. Where is everything known to you? One more, dream more. I'm going to read it twice. It is dream more of the day than empty bed. I carry how many empty buckets? We were meant for each other as new animals. Severally means me, you, and the other feet. I am ashamed that when I sleep, your time stands still. Dream more. It is dream more of the day than empty bed. I carry how many empty buckets? We were meant for each other as new animals. Severally means me, you, the other feet. I am ashamed that when I sleep, your time stands still. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Erica. Beautiful. I'm so glad you sang. That gave me chills, and just a beautiful, beautiful reading. Thanks so much. Before I forget, I do want to mention that there are two readings coming up in this series. In fact, Anne Waldman is the next reading in May. We're doing a tribute to Anne Waldman, and then the last one of the season will be a tribute to Will Alexander. So please check in for those. Our next reader will be Maureen Owen. Maureen Owen, former editor of Telephone magazine and Telephone books, is the author of A.E. Amelia Earhart, recipient of the Before Columbus American Book Award, American Rush Selected Poems, a finalist for the LA Times Book Prize, Erosion's Pull, and Edges of Water, published by Chax Press in 2013. Forthcoming from Hanging Loose Press in 2021 is her book, Let the Heart Hold Down the Breakage, or The Caregiver's Log. She is taught at Naropa University, Boulder, Colorado, in Naropa's summer writing program, and edited Naropa's online zine, Not Enough Night, through 19 issues. Maureen, welcome.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm very honored and excited to be a part of this reading in honor of a tribute to John, who's one of my favorite poets. Before I read a couple of poems, I wrote down a few thoughts and memories I have around John. So I wanted to read that first. When I first arrived into Manhattan's Lower East Side, I was fortunate to meet poets at readings, at parties, in restaurants. But I have such a distinct memory of meeting John Godfrey on the street. I was walking with Rebecca Wright, taking our children to Tompkins Square Park to play, when we ran into John on the southwest periphery of the park. Rebecca knew John and so introduced us. It was a brief meeting as our children were running off into the park and John was on a mission, both of mercy and of finance. I remember him so clearly, tall, lean, and wildly good looking. The three of us chatted, and I remember him making us laugh a lot, telling a funny just happened story. Then we had to dash into Tompkins Square after our children with a wave to John as he continued on, as he had approached, his long strides effortlessly swifting him deeper and deeper into the avenues. That initial encounter made such an impression that when I think of John, I always envision him outside, walking Manhattan streets and grids. John is famous for saying, if I may paraphrase, in New York, you never have to ask yourself, what will I do today? Just open your door. So when I immerse myself in the pages of John Godfrey, I enter his lyric of the avenues, his language, like his steps, broken open, absorbing the street life, vulnerable. His pace is present, his attention constant. His sail is raised. He's tacking a wind other pedestrians may not even register as breeze. A poet of the human condition, his concerns wax existential as he internalizes into language a population and its entire city. And that's John's generosity at play, his willingness to cross that border of mere observation and completely allow scenes from curbside grace to intermingle his perceptions, synchronizing a magical configuration where poet and pavement are speaking to us in one voice. This is the raw mixture. There are no fences between the care and open heart of John's transfiguring poetics and his sense of concern for and dedication to record his town, his New York. John worked as a nurse for years with HIV/AIDS patients. While chatting with him one time, he mentioned he was lifting weights. Me too, I said, then joked, trying to keep up those beach biceps. John looked at me for a moment before replying in a more serious tone that that wasn't the reason, his reason for lifting. I'm trying to stay strong so I'll be able to carry my patients when they get too weak to stand, he said. And then I'm going to read a couple of poems. This first poem of John's is from Music of the Curves from 1976. It is magic, actually. And it's just titled Poem. Not the beating of wings, nor the curled lip spooks of jet, but the draft of wharves and embassies gently poking a crimson silk shawl strung between my threadbare luxury and the street's whirl, and its sheepish threats was wind and shadow to the familiar, ever easier pleasure, in whose kind polymorphous hands the bedding was deformed to resemble the sylvan stubble, white water and boulders of Arcady, frescoed by a mediocre hand, redeemed only by its impetuous blues, as they refract through the shapely jugs behind any Greek's midtown bar. An incongruously cool Malaysian bay, bails with the depressed precision of a sympathetic guard into our street, where voices return unweighted by meaning for us. As if tuning yourself, you dress white, so solidly between thin token war pages of glass, which shines gray from the sky when you are momentarily thrilled with blood. And I'm going to read two from City of Corners from 2008. This first one is titled Waiting There. And you go down that street, rainbows ahead bling you, like midnight never does. And I wonder where evening will be tonight, my loved ones waiting there. I pretend my swagger through debris is the holy dance of the many my days. On the remotest sidewalk, facing the moon, I cannot say the orphan still lives, and you recognize the battleground you can hide her in. Quadrangle dirt, the buildings are old and half blind, with an enemy like daylight who needs the psychology dime. Hips do the work, and I cross the world. And then this last piece is titled Lance. Exit the walk-in closet of air, bold colors, where was luminous mist. The jinx, you think, is behind you. Nausea and bad temper too. Bagman inside makes his last drop. He is in ruthless pursuit of bread soup. It's my favorite line. He is in ruthless pursuit of bread soup. A choir of the cheerless garnish the trudge. Tongues and souls parched on elevators, caught in the daytime net cast by bricks. Fleece of the brain snarls out of eligibility. Dream of jailbreak and the escape bike. Clinging to the belly of a black sheep, woeful return to society with fleece of tar. You score a point for every place you've seen, a particular emphasis on doubt. It should clasp me, like the lover I sleep with, but never wake to, rippling the shoulder knot of my goad. The idea of a rematch is repugnant. The template of a theft escapes. On the sidewalk, the powdered shape of a man, in the backseat a lance with fiber and blood. The edge is keen, and hearing keener. You choose the dead cinch. You count precisely nicked coins. Every now and then pause for a nick. The heartless appear in a flattering light, never slow for bumps. John Godfrey. A wonderful poet.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Maureen. I love that memory piece. So glad you wrote that and read it. And also the range from the 70s to the 2000s. Glad you read that early poem. So nice. Thank you. Our next reader is Duncan McNaughton, and this is a bio provided by Duncan himself. Duncan McNaughton, 1942, grew up near Boston, has lived in California since 1973, San Francisco now. Poet, editor, publisher, one-time teacher. Recent books: Tiny Windows, 2014, Somewhere in the Stream, 2019, Father Time, 2021. Fortunately, he and John Godfrey have been close friends for 50 plus years. Duncan, over to you in San Francisco.
For old John Godfrey. The pilot in the woods, crashed his carpet on the interstate, walks in a moist gold nimbus, white scarf lifted breezily, flowing over leather shoulders, ivory legs to shiny leather boots. As dark hair went to Princeton, the school of aviational urbanity. Snow falls on Nassau Street, on well-to-do scholars. Quisque suos patimomanis, right? Turn around. We dig our highs, we don't dig pain too much, exiled inside these borders. Snow don't fall here, in this cell full of monkey. That's about 45 years ago, about the time we got to know one another, a little later. This is an elegy from 1993 that was published by Ray De Palma, called Mull's Least Moan, for David Rattray. Shaded by the future to bargain with only distance in hand, blossoms comfortably eat on every side a grave, wanton with dialect. Metallic green climax, no breathing in this music in slivers of morrow. 2. Marked on an arm by pulverized petals, overnight damp on brow, roundabout advances beyond circumspection, arm suspends head. Early Renaissance heightens the man's virtu liaison, that he refused to shed or share one's grief for him. 3. Loony nimbus outchills evening star growth rings, thrill traverses cheek, awake paced for sound, petite egress through darkness, whole away. Out the window on femme wisps of smoke, the manner play of dying. 4. Evolved fool to wraith, should urge revanche, less shelter, less sage. Banned, 'cause prayer burned, consolatory reflex, zilched of hang time. Some teeming heave of sand, lichen brined, vasting wind derives daylight from world. Alert to tools, turning deep, enter flora for keeping, far and sudden place. Penetrating echoes trail. That's John then. So I'm going to read a couple of things of my own in the hope that John and you others may dig it. Anything to please the cat. This is called Vincent Katz' Dream. At Rainbow today, I bump into Cedar in the aromatherapy aisle. We discuss the domestic heroic. This is how it starts. Sudden thought, too sudden to be thought, not thought. Leaving the market, I ask, where is the man who resisted memory? Once in Baghdad they killed him, and then he was hung. What does An al-Haq have to do with the temptation of time? Midday sky, black, full of echoes. The integrity of cosmos is to itself beside the point. It doesn't have a self. I'm writing a poem, slow fall of the fire, migration of whispers. The architecture subsists in the telling of structures, not in their representation. The old greeting asks after motion, ascending la scala di resipiscenza. The old gesture arranges my unknowable part in the elaboration. In the dream of Vincent Katz, he was poring over what Plutarch has to say about the number called the marriage. I dreamed his dream. Its name is also if. Its name is also you are. What children we are, for the tear undamned, for the henned hand that kindly wipes it dry. Bright stars mark its gentle fingertips. I left the secret of the golden flower on the back porch railing 2 years ago. Spiders live in it. Rain falls on it, twisted stiff by the sun, binding cracked. All my notes in the margins from 30 years got wet, smeared. Why should I mind waiting? The axis of the deep comes up at my feet from the dark yellow earth. It rises to thickly quilted white clouds in the blue deep above my head. No wonder Monk is playing You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To. Empty, polar ships, their lights winking at anchor, riding the swell. For a long time I've thought that round midnight is what Monk did with You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To. And the last one is quick. Find it. Where is it? Again, this is for John and for all of us who are together right now. It's called Cypress on the Lips. When I write a letter to you to come to its end, the black stone. What happened to us has no name that can be spoken in this world. I need to travel again, or rather, to find again the city of strangers, the city of transparent friends, la città dei fedeli d'amore, or the name that can't be spoken in this world is on everyone's lips. Thanks, it's great to see all of you.
Thank you, Duncan. Such a beautiful reading, so rich. I look forward to listening to that again. There's so much there. Thelonious et al. Our next reader will be Anne Waldman. Anne Waldman is the author most recently of All Rainbows in a Brainstorm That We Be So Contained, with artist Natalie Provosti, published by Hassler Editions, and Goslings to Prophecy with Emma Gomes, published by Lune, both works conceived during the pandemic. Other offerings in 2020 included the album Skiamaki, the book Sanctuary, and as co-translator with Andrew Schelling, Songs of the Sons and Daughters of Buddha, translations from the Theragatha, published by Shambhala Publications. Bard Kinetic will be published in 2022 by Coffee House Press, and is artistic director of the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics Summer Writing Program at Naropa University, Boulder, Colorado, from where she joins us. Anne, welcome.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Dia. Thank you, all you poets. Really wonderful to hear you and celebrating John Godfrey. So a couple of notes, as Maureen did, just some thoughts here. Also celebrating his Mannahatta Muse. The perpetual city, the restless perpetual outside keeps poems going. In, out, above, below, side to side, sidereal, meandering, ever perceptive, like Whitman, crisp and light O'Hara, torqued with humanity. The quotidian and the curious flaneur practice of each unique day, odd moment, aside, astride in life, noticing with his huge tentacular mind, associating. Can we think with the poet? Can we notice with the poet? Surely that's the great pleasure of it. Catch a ride. Proprioception, emptiness, waiting till what pops in, keep walking that edgy rhythm, mental in space, ordinary mind turned alchemy, the liberation in tone of city, in room that becomes a harbor, listen and note alliteration of car tires at noon, a city hydrant or hoses water becoming a lake. The poems do that. You are where the plot is already dedicated. There is something over a park, like the frightening depth underneath a swimmer. Hat in hand is a far cry, sidewalks glow, a liquid brown, spattered hose noted, a lake is the corner, surface jauntiness, alliteration of tires at noon. And I'd never heard that before, those alliteration of tires at noon. Now I hear them all the time. The poems don't necessarily build to apotheosis, revelation, conclusion, but their efficacy continues, keeps rolling. They're incidentals. They are secrets, luminous details in the scripts of poignant day world. I know you, Miss City Line, in your facial patois. They construct visions in the mirror world, peopled and apart. The restless pedestrian, astute observer, jump the connections, conjunctions. He's working too. Bright projections onto imagination's other place. Godfrey is looking slant. He's shifting attentions, his psychophysical body alert, ready, and we can follow and pause and turn a corner. And I think I never saw, never heard, never imagined that quite like that before. Music too, step by step, a body mediation, meditation, breath after breath on the pavement of over and under civilized, with decaying rudiments of existence and things and love and empathy in public space. I've known this steady and dazzling poet over 50 years. We've shared a community. He's another card-carrying devotee and always showing up. And he's elsewhere too, visiting the work of others. Douglas Dunn and dancers come to mind, a prominent example of what he attends to bodies in space. He's reading you, and you too, poets, and you too. We're lucky. What's left? It's poets in such an ideal universe. Reciprocal, the dark age, exhausting, exhilarating, the age of reckoning in the struggle. We're the same age. I've got 3 months on him. Met first, I think he's right out of Princeton. Where was it? Coming up the stairs at 33 St. Mark's Place with Lewis McAdams. I had a crush on him and his poems way back. His new book, From Cuneiform, A Torch for Orphans, is palpitating with the same heart and neurological wisdom. Anselm Berrigan writes of it, is that a torch for orphans is to be alone with many, to be many alone with this curious ongoing everybody, staying in the way of them who walk back, singing powerful unlikeness from the depths of the real spaces between us. And from John's poem, Good Outcomes, in that same book, don't go away in madness. Don't go away too sure. What a devil says computes. Go ahead, have a heyday. Sun squeezes into tight sky. Man walks blocks in search. So I'm reading slightly poems before that. This is from Singles and Fives from 2011. Your Island. The trance transmits water from tree to tree. I'm afraid to state my love. It is unfounded and chokes on foliage. I subscribe to your face. I cancel my shadow. A lucky stroke of burnt umber on cheek. The empires of countless patrons cut loose from your island of legs. Your island, your legs. It darkens on the hour. It is not where you were told. To all appearances, the emptiness at the end repeats itself. You sit in the lobby. The privacy surprises you. You are partially borne along in it. This is not when to relax. Suggestions, they go on and on. The room has an illusion that is a park. The room has an illusion that it is a park. You see labor has made it natural and healthy. You are where the plot is already dedicated. There is something over a park like the frightening depth underneath a swimmer at sea. The room is also a harbor. Large things come to rest. Tide is predictable. Fish have their season in the odor of the partner, and then they assemble, who are always with her, to have a trowel for an astral woman, to have wet cups. The room speaks to her, and I speak to the roof. Also from the same book, Singles and Fives, tell the angels, wherever you come from, that's where they are. Get off the table and adjust your lap. One life can change your memory of events, pants into pantoums, silken skin into marble, certain things that never change the other way round. Hat in hand is a far cry, sidewalks glow a liquid brown, spattered hose noted, a lake is the corner, surface jauntiness, and enterprise traverse, clues in disarray, stepping stones amaze, how to tell a tether from a tenterhook. I choose to look up and into the next face. I can tell the angels by their tarnish, by their attachment to brands, steer angels from under awnings, weighed on by slush, one for my shoulders. Just sing a little. I'm always inspired by Erica. And this is Dispelling Face. Those two were from around 2011. This is 2012, Tiny Gold Dress. Dispelling Face. Mirror boy, mirror girl, never can you tell in the mirror world. Contradiction from ambiguity. Alliteration of tires at noon. Inconsistencies of the equal and the functions they suggest. Axis passed through one dispelling face. The prices she pays in life, I watch through the veil. When she's ready, you know there's no replacement. She signs with a snake 3 times of her neck, the communal letter of odium. Reverie comes hard. Sometime grandma looks good. Voluptude that never resolves, seems always snookered 3 feet from the well. Back of the hand, large with veins. Eyelid gleams lavender out of shadow. Sundry things she wears at her waist. Hip things to do in captivity. And had a little bit of, exchange during these months with John, and I have a grandchild in Mexico City, and I sent a photo at the holidays with a picture of her with lights, Christmas lights or holiday lights around her. And he wrote back, her name is Cora. Cora's first lap should be complete already now soon. Let me tell you, the shot of her wrapped in tiny season light was cool, but as an old PEDS RN, I did cringe. She's very young, having passed through extremely young, and entertainment with wiry lit up things is a wee bit risky. Keep an eye on. which I very much appreciated. He's been so sweet with my becoming a grandmother. She was 1 year at the equinox. And then finally, I just wanted to read from a slightly longer piece of my own. This is A Walk and a Conversation by Water, and I'll read it for John. It's called Conversation with a Visionary Botanist. Green grass, you said, stepping back, human, thinking it's true in this life. Of course, green is where I come from, the way we rise from sea, mermaimed, you mean? Mermaimed, I said, our spectrum must be green, a plucky green. And you said the fungal mat, my cortisol, and then the love affair of fungi and algae, and not loan or lawn or loam, not necessary in many a place, but what they establish, symbiosis, green from Old English grow on, because tidal life is grow on, because plankton is grow on, because green, because you run on. Poetry is the pain of time. We walk by the ocean deciding to do this for our love, our attraction, our desire. Green is slang for money, I say. Oh, no, not that. People out here riding a beast, the color of sand. Where on the spectrum, I ask? We'll walk on the cold tundra, talk about nanometers, photosynthesis, because green and grass and adherent will be present in your eye, even absent eye of hiding, eye of regret, eye of sweat. Saying about dryness, I asked how it might look rasping. Why not always green? You say drought or doubt. Then I asking, how urgent is this? Thank you, John. Thank you, John Godfrey.
Wow, thank you, Anne. Beautiful presentation. I love the flaneur. We have to mention that. And also, I like that you mentioned the Douglas Dunn performance, because I feel that that's true. John is just everywhere, every poetry reading, every film at the Film Forum when it was open, and it's now open again. Dance performance. He just is really a polymath and a flaneur and surface jauntiness for sure. Thank you. So I will say a few words to introduce John Godfrey. We'll then do a reading. Before I do that, I want to read one short poem of John's. This is from his book Dabble from 1982, published by Full Court Press, edited by Anne Waldman and Ron Padgett and Joan Simon, correct? Yeah. And beautiful book, one of my favorite books of John's. There, Erica's got to cover. Say something, Erica, so we can see you for a second with the book. Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful color, beautiful design. So this is John Godfrey's poem, Venus, for Jim Brodie. Awake, compassionate as only a neurasthenic errant can be, I refresh at the inertia of world at the retard, ice-chunked river, against which I scrupulously prepare this duel that rivals photograph. Only the interrogative better matches universals to formlessness than the sword tipped with evening's planet, displayed for the banquet and funeral. Hallelujah! And the color banana of melted hope. The wall curves like flesh, and foreseeable habitudes overlooks how farewells are lit. If one builds with vivid sacrifice, bodies up into the skyline, he tastes all the licks and traces, all the dog-peed trails on gutters, through the Pantheon cum lavatory in which one's voice makes requiem. John Godfrey's poems, like their author, are tough but refined, open-hearted and guarded, part of the community and lone wolf. An essential member of the downtown New York City poetry scene for decades, Godfrey is a prolific poet with a fierce dedication to his art, who cannot be easily pigeonholed into any of the groups defined by the New American Poetry Anthology, edited by Donald Allen and published by Grove Press in 1960. John is essentially sui generis. There is a music in his poems, music of the curbs as he himself defined it, that is somewhat halting, unpredictable, with a panache that takes his poems authoritatively from opening salvo to pointed ending. I used to think of John and Jim Brodey as partners in poetic crime, and in a sense they were. With time, I've come to realize John's deep connections with other poets of his generation, a number of them now gone: Ted Greenwald, Larry Fagan, Bill Berkson, Tom Clark, Louis Warsh. John has written poems in their memory. Some are collected in his most recent book, A Torch for Orphans. But Godfrey is never one to wallow in the past. He knows it wasn't as great as all that, and he's eager for the present. All these qualities have made Godfrey and his poetry a touchstone for a wide range of younger poets. As his energy increases, so does our wonder and gratitude. John Godfrey, we lift our hats to you.
Thank you very much for this happening. And my friends, oh my God. I have to say it was a little startling to hear other people's voices reading my poems. I mean, I don't have a detailed memory of my own writing. And I'm glad something got closer than 20 years ago among the poems that were read. This is the book from Cuneiform Press, A Torch for Orphans. I'm going to read from that 7 poems, and I'm going to try to get in some newer writing. I read in 4-year batches, and these are poems that were from the beginning of 2015 until the end of 2018. I found that when I got to be 70 years old, I got hot-headed. You know, it felt great. I got hot-headed. I'm going to read a poem I thought I might be able to retire, and I used as a frontispiece in this new book. It was dated. I never do this in print. It's dated November 29th, 2016. So you can imagine what this the title is. Civ Dis, the DTs. What, you don't step on my shine, punk. Between my elbows and my glasses is no fly. Between my fly and my thigh is outer space capsule. You just be quiet to we. Hanging fence, mon cul. To all non-binary guerrilla cadres, his gender mind's a scant 2 inches. To all multi-maroon intransigent cliques, his color lacks obedience. To all fern-head body downs, lay them down on denialer's werewolf. Ain't no living wage in armor garden. Ironic camouflage is our exposition. Subvertationist catwalk knows time. Observe without you hide. Change mode of muck wash. Can't predict change, so change like it's yours to do. Them who backwalk don't see the curtain drops, don't see the separated baby head ain't Martian. Them who backwalk stay in their way. Granite bowels. I count lit windows, less dread sparkles on lapels. Water whirls by river railing, and first quarter moon clings like an off-white crawling man. I cut myself off at the Sunoco. I imagine myself sun-baked lizard. When I am young in flight, then is more than survival. Now it is to defend pillowcase and boudoir of a goddess with a hot core, trace of black lip gloss in her granite bowels. Acute feelings of my body don't come from my body anymore. Glass and steel without glass humors me. Die or cover my head with scaffolds. Foreboding is a comic kind of reckless. So I want ululating grief, far from front lines, far from peace. America. Ill stars, the DTs. Subconscious resentment meets permissive slime, like that. Don't hardly have time to pull back mic from holified bleep speech vapor. Charcuterie assassination, libelous claims in wireless air. Virtual impalement on guns with butter lube. Don't deserve a world such as mine. I must have tired, juicy mango. Mustafa of known ill stars, back. His trailer, good price, good goods. Brown shop fruit here. Mustafa's smiling eyelids instinctively rein in the obvious. Not what story, rather, what story not? The system. The system that works is one of the forgotten. A law you can guess at if only you can observe it. Like hammocks don't care which human is real. Only you will learn that fucking in trees is for nymphs. Don't mistake that for a law. Depends what your stake is, marbled stake, sweepstake, or high stakes. You get a flash, come up with prior results, one of which is extinction. The sea levels with you, royal flush and sulfurs, four of a kind and acids. Where you came from is no place to go to. Bedtime approaches for H. Bonzo. Not for all the horses on flags, not for all the eyeballs in seas. Tighten straps on mask, protect hair from micron dusts, skin from searing forge. No more separate ways to go. Sands of fantasy fall in glass, conjugation at the bottleneck. Time will be relieved of math. Last LED he'll crap out. Last inarticulate pain buried. No one left to hide. Cheerful thoughts. And if my mother was alive, she'd be spinning in her grave. On and on. If photos come real, if photographers would die to witness, if toddlers shade to gray under stone, the heart turns to stone in black light. The hand in lamplight snaps fingers, no map unrolls. White helmets, bloodied tiles, murder in the house, in the bag. Heart weaves to see flattened papoose. Targets are a helpless sort. Vanity of my guilty revulsion. Eternity supplicates on and on. One air. There is one air over the wall. It is a stride ahead this Friday. Land falls like raw sugar and the poison flood kicks plastic out of their teeth. Speed gun on theatrical skies. Can't go through this alone. Still, there are too many in town. Eye candy Rumple's stunner runs in flood, stretched sweats across brown Texas skin, while those with only wrapping cloths covered heads above river to Bangladeshi mud scarp, sky as overfilled sieve, and grave as salve. Nothing to nothingness eyes. Whimper little baby cry. More recent poems written since the beginning of 2019. Dollar bridegroom. Highlights swing from a shoulder like chain. Lowly glows a rib at sundown. No silence spared from being filled. I have the next question, yo, but you may as well go ahead with yours. All right now? So, What can you do to shorten a 30,000-year mistake? QED is the animal side of the dollar bridegroom. Die by winds and decomposing noise. The key is in the ignition. The grid is in your screen. And before this, I will remind you of the precursor to the Viet Cong was the Viet Minh. And that is the way to take the word Minh in this. Earth Minh. Strip of dead deep surf inflected with suffocation. Wary snowhawk sees bipeds flood black bare and light. Meadows picnicked into houses. Earthmen liberate earth with waters and blows. White burden tricks out so outsized innocence. If you brown, you drown. Straight through, no intermission. Empty swivel. Your color gets you cheated. Well, cheat back. A wall around the empty swivel chair. Over that wall, the same again. I'd be the last to say, stay self-sufficient. And so drowned like appendage, like coin. Choir sings to choir, and they sicken each other. Those who earn 3/5 of one care, those who are sued at birth, step out front and solo as lonely women do. Night introduces subwords, groans, and abrupt articulations. She is tired, I think, and I show her to a resting place. Juicy fruit. And a reminder that in the 1970 US Census, my zip code 10009 was more than 90% non-white. And look at it now. Juicy fruit. How many the numbers run, how long the odds noir, on film the comprehensible badness, 2-3 screens on the data-fed base, permanent numeration tag, a vessel of wits crossing the bridge, feet wet, you bet, from teardrop tattoos, neighbors, where you gone? Substitute urbans miss lawn order, plastic Play-Doh and accordion purses, disparities eggshell, the poor now fewish, purged, foreign by stroke of nitre, this way to Division Street. Both sides calibrated frosty smiles, courtesy cling-wrapped. What's wrong with that elder's wheelie rucksack starch load? A1C, huh? You can tell by juicy fruit breath behind the mask. What's wrong with a spiral shell in rainy gutter, busted hoddle in gun hand? Call wet trees sparsely feathered. Call a rat in niche where two buildings never touch. Hell-bent. Naked is as naked deliberates. Flesh tones restrictive, lesson before dying, gray bones dry over last night's fire. Sequel in mind of nomad, land of monads. Escape non-flammable searchlight, cold halogen dick. Why can't you tell she's a child once you aim? Mind the limit on grandmas. I melt my hands in firefights, dunk them in ice chips, hold them up as smoke shop lights in the burrow of churches. I falsely think a ribbon of blood makes my feet stop dancing. I ring the bell without information to add to the video. Murder just outside my heart makes it yearn. Break of day states the question plain. Everything still hell-bent. The swinging spider with white dots on black in a dream of hairpiece harvest. Pale palms of hands against glass hull in death ship dream. Distrust beseeching more than gentleness in kind eyes. Sorrow so true it's unreal. A million sandals. No wonder at the herd around toothpick huts, the custom of who complains third. Whirlybird burned through soul to spit out skin, exuded and replaced with what-not sheen. Switched from boisterous to solemn to slack, still unseen, spilling from broken intercoms, lead paint rooms, like bins lost and found in 13E. Don't jump, not yet. My skin deserts demographs and numbness maths. My lips and tongue lose sparkle. I sit in occupied seats. I favor electric red open weave tonics. I let loose local minnows in potluck sink. Energy grinds out so the camera burns bright, symmetrical hand gestures. 2-month lease on facial misdemeanors. Vendor relents for this special bullet in Podgoda. Monk hollers louder than priest, thorough many languages before Creon, 7-letter names for thieves and democides, ferried down watery blood, river to river, paddy to gulf, calendar of moons freezes its gears, noisy walk, a million sandals, and for the lucky a muted sacrifice, remarkably embalmed. It's my last poem. Ticket hand. River can't save its veneer. Safe combination, yes, but not the key. Heartbeat a minute. Ask again and see what kind of wealth. Harlequin has her price. She appears from out of a German joke. No laughing matter. 20 years later, you remember it as outgrown zero. Hard number. Has no turn signal. Cold honed steel on next truck. And you under streetlights ride your brights on. Slick hand slips lament in my pillowcase. REM video, an untidy newsroom, an untidier subway frottage. Wine stain, no matter in dream. City-bound ticket hand platform, revenants with a beat. Instead of sardine hors d'oeuvres, sign bubbles and obsession jewels gild my phantasm. For tomorrow morning, when I wear Milky Way 2-inch tie, jostled through clouds of women in blue and gray patterned skirt suits. Every last one wears a cloche. Train goes on the air horn first. I find a window seat, sit down, drum on my thighs like no one else. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you so much, John, and thanks to all the poets who read this evening, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you, man.
Yes, it was so wonderful. I learned so much about your life as well, John. That was really beautiful. Thank you, Erica, Duncan, Maureen, Anne, John, and Vincent. And thank you also, Theodora Lang and Max Tanone from DIA's staff who make these wonderful events possible. And just before we go, I just want to plug, Vincent already mentioned it, but our next reading is in fact honoring Anne Waldman, who read tonight. So I hope that a lot of you will join us then. And actually the readers for Anne's event will be Emma Gomez, Patricia Jones-Spear, Rachel Levitsky, and Eleni Siglianos. So I hope to see some or a lot of you then. Thank you so much. That's on May 11th.